Microphones are muted.
My microphone is muted. Do I unmute over here?
No, there's muted, you speak from there. I'll second.
Can you, Joanne, can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Now I can hear you.
Well, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Tonight it's Tuesday, June 28th. My apologies, 2022. I'm already jumping. This is the City Council, City of Providence Charter Review Commission. When the close meeting to order, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chairman Johnny Biasi,
Present, please.
Vice Chairman Oscar Vargas,
Present.
Councilwoman Carmen Castillo, present. Commissioner Brian Principe,
Present.
Commissioner Ellen Sinar, present. Commissioner Tiana Ochoa is absent. Commissioner Robert Rishi is absent. Commissioner Dr. Wayne Montague.
Present.
We have 6 present and 2 absent. Not a problem.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let the record reflect that Chairwoman, Councilwoman Ryan is present, and she's here. Mike, I believe we have Kim Brace from all the election data services here, and also Ryan. Thank you. All right. Item number 1 is I'm just going to very quickly background. There's been a lot of discussion from constituents, stakeholders, etc. We've been talking about, as you know, charter review. It's time to review the charter. Any proposed change that can go to the public, decide if they'd like to change the charter, city government function. One of the issues has been a discussion of proposed elected school board. As you know, the present school board is 9 members. It's appointed by the mayor. I mean, they have a committee that vets people and gives them to the mayor, and the mayor appoints the 9. And there you go. I believe they serve 3-year terms. And so with that, Sean from the council office, working with others and the consultant, started, putting together these pieces and fleshing out what would be a proposal if we went down this. What could it look like, and how could it work, and how does it work within the confines, by the way, of present challenges that are happening in different states, present places where states are now actually going to elected school boards, and what would probably be a potential best proposal that could actually fit well in the city of Providence. I think that's kind of general. And Sean and the team have been working diligently on this, so I want to thank them, of course, for willing to do this. And they did a lot of research and background, and I'm going to let Sean now present more detail what it's about. And you can start off, I guess, first with one. I'm going to make sure for the record, though, is I believe you're going to start with the map. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, I think it would make sense to have the map on the screen.
So let me enter into the record. Okay, so this is what number? This is
27.
27. So you can enter into the record as Exhibit 27, a map of the proposed regional elected school board member. Okay. Thank you. That's an E. I have a second by. So principally discussion. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So we're going to enter that into the record, and if you could, Madam Clerk, you could put that on the board. And I'd ask if Sean's going to make his presentation, and then we can go there and we can do the Q&A if that's okay. All right. And I'll wait till we'll get on the board for a sec. Good, Sean?
Good. It does sometimes take a minute for image to load, so
Yes.
I can actually probably get started.
All right, you get started. Can you just tell us what's in, can you tell us what's in front of the map first, explain what this thing, or do you want to, how do you want to do it?
So hopefully the image loads. Yep. So I will give just a very quick overview of the proposal, then get more in the weeds on some of the considerations that went into this. I should just start for the record. So Sean Bouchard, Director of Policy for Providence City Council. So yeah, over a month and a half ago or so, we had the superintendent and the head of the school board in front of this commission. We heard a little bit about the idea of an elected school board, but really didn't get the weeds on how that would work for Providence. And so in doing some due diligence on importing that idea and posing it in the city of Providence specifically, we've come up with an idea of kind of what this could look like. So the proposal before you is a 10-member elected school board, 2 members elected from 5 equal regions of the city, which is the map that you have before you as a potential configuration, so you can kind of understand geographically where these regions would be. And then the elected school board members would serve term limits of 3 consecutive 4-year terms and would be elected in a nonpartisan election at the November election, whenever this went into effect. So that's the overview of the kind of general principles of the proposal, but getting into the weeds as to how you arrive, some considerations that you need to consider in the event you would want to pursue an elected school board, I think are important. So I think the first thing to consider when you think of an elected school board is elected in what fashion, right? Are these elected at large? Are they elected for each ward? What area are you having to canvass in order to become an elected school board? When you start to think about that, I think the biggest piece in my mind that jumps out is actually an issue that came up in the city of Worcester, Massachusetts, very recently, when they decided to go to an elected board. They had an elected school board elected fully at large, and the top 6 vote getters become the school board at the election, and that was how it was processed. They actually faced a challenge under the Voting Rights Act in federal district court from many interested parties within the city, because the reality of what ended up transpiring was that a certain demographic was able to be very much overrepresented due to the costs associated with running for that office. When you're running citywide, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of expense. It can be very difficult for everyday individuals to want to go through that. And so the outcome was a disproportionate representation on the school board, and the federal district court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, and ultimately Worcester has now moved into a region. And so they decided to go to 6 regions within the city. And so that is first and foremost, Voting Rights Act compliance is a very big, important thing to consider. In considering that in the context of Providence, you could certainly go to every ward gets a school board. It's certainly something you could pursue. That would expand the school board significantly up to 15. We did not hear any feedback from anyone claiming that the number of school board members was an issue. Not really members of the public saying that 9 is that number. So it seemed like that would be a fairly drastic shift. And so that was something we tried to move away from. I should flag that we have the benefit, I think, right now, having just completed our redistricting process. We still have the assistance of election data services, who walked us through our redistricting for the city council to reset our boards. And so they're still in the process of working with canvassers for all the precincts. And so we're actually able to tap into them for assistance in trying to structure 5 equal areas within the city to have balanced representation across the city. And so that image that you have presented before you is simply a possibility. It's not by any means the final decision or anything like that, but it's to give you an idea of kind of cardinal points. You could group 3 wards per region, and if, in the case of Providence, works out fairly well to group neighborhoods and wards that are fairly cohesive, are well balanced, and provide every member of the city an opportunity to have a voice when it comes to being elected or voting on who your representatives would be on the school. And so that is the basis by which we came to a number of 5 regions, and that's what's represented before. So then the next question was, within these regions, how many people are elected? When you allow for 2 people to be elected from each of these regions, one of the nice benefits that we were able to have by doing so is the ability to have staggered terms. One of the nice things about the current composition of our school board is that not everybody is at one time. School board members are on a rotating basis. So every few years you'll have turnover, you have the ability to have new voices, new interests represented, and an ability to have accountability. So by having 2 members from each region, the proposal would be in the first election, the top vote getter from each region gets a 4-year term, second place individual gets 2-year terms, so that way, then moving forward, all 4-year terms are offset. You have every 2 years 5 members of the school board up for election. So that provides an ability to have kind of that rotating basis on the school board while not running into a situation where there's no continuity because potentially on 10 or 12 at the same time, and now we're in a position where nobody has to take kind of institutional role. So that was kind of a nice function of allowing. So that gets you to both the election terms. When you get into the idea of term limits, city council is kind of right now on the cusp of running term limits. Benefits and challenges of a situation where you do have term limits imposed on you. It allows for greater turnover, allow for more injection of new blood, new ideas, and the rest. Again, there seems to be a lot of positive feedback we've received around the imposition of term limits. I think the mayor and the council carrying that same concept of term limits over to the elected school board seems to make sense. And so again, the recommendation would just be at this point, if you went with the elected school board, keep that same criteria for the council members as for school. Taking a step back briefly in terms of where all of this resides within the city charter, because it does implicate numerous sections of the city charter. So the school board itself is outlined in section 701. It's actually 701 through 703 are all different sections that would end up having potential alteration if you were to choose to go to elected school board. In addition to that, there are sections 206 through, 201 through 208, which have to do with elected officials. In addition to that, there may also be a criteria that needs to be implemented regarding the elected school board's ability to impose taxation. It's made explicit that that is reserved for the city council, although they, so just for a quick understanding, so by switching to an elected school board, they are now elected representatives of the city, not appointed, they're an elected body in the sense of fire district or water district, and they have their taxing authority, it's not explicitly stated, and just making sure if you go this route to preserve that authority to choose to the city council, that way you're not implicating the budget process, a whole slew of other charter provisions that you may untextually want. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood early on. It's not something that requires a ton of language change. It's just making sure that that is part of it. I think it's important to understand. And I think just the final point in terms of those charter sections, by becoming elected officials, they would be subject to the same vacancy and removal provisions of city council members. If they are not attending, if they're absent, if they're discouraged, the city council, in this case, when the school board could make a determination if there's a vacancy, it's necessitated, the city council could then call for special elections to replace that. I think that's a fairly good stopping point, I think, for me for right now. I think the only other thing I would just flag is in doing the research, there does seem to be, nationally a transition towards elected school boards in some fairly major jurisdictions, including Chicago, Boston being the last school district in Massachusetts that was appointed. They are in the process of phasing in an elected school board. The proposal that is before them is to go to a hybrid system and then ultimately. So there's kind of a tiered format that they're working through right now. There was a non-binding referendum that was put before the Boston voters that passed at 78% in favor of some form of elected school. So I think it's important to understand those neighbors have done that. Providence being one of the last jurisdictions in Rhode Island to have the school board. I know there's been some feedback. I'm sure there's quite a few questions and considerations to be made. Again, I think it's just taking the concept of elected and importing some lessons learned from other jurisdictions on issues they run into, trying to apply this to a Providence-specific model, and giving an idea of visually what neighborhoods could group together, what regions, all the rest. I think that this is, from my perspective, at least a launch pad for robust discussion, but I'm happy to answer questions or do any further research.
Commissioner, Dr. Martin.
Tim, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this. education is probably the number one priority of everyone. Sean did a great job. I think everything else perfect. I have some questions. I'd just like to ask you. Maybe they can fit into your plan. Great job. And this is open to discussion with all the members. So basically, it goes down to this. If you ever think of having a hybrid committee about the school board, they have a elected with others appointed, so that elected and appointed to ensure representation of the Providence school board is diverse. Place individuals on the Providence school board who have specific subject matter expertise. We also have a student on the school board with voting rights. Now, this is different from how we do things now. But I sit on the school board now. It's one of the really good examples of what happens in the school board. We set applications for the school board, we run the procedures, we public forum, nominating committee selects individuals to submit to the mayor. They take the interviews, he selects basically who feels is the top individual in the Senate. And that is sent to the city council for approval. City council can deny, approve it. That's how we do it today. Is it going pretty good? Pretty good. Is it the best? I don't know. We just present it pretty good. I just want you to look at what we do now. What I talked about in terms of having a hybrid private school board. When I think of this, what's more democratic than having elected and appointed? So when I walk through the community and I talk to people, some people love elected, some people love appointed. And what I'm trying to do here is come to some type of consensus around this so that we all can share in this victory of which way we want to go. So that everybody's happy. And the kids, the children of the city of Providence are getting the best education possible. And that starts with the school. So the presentation was excellent, open-minded to it. There's people in the audience that I spoke to personally, open-minded about this. And I just need to have some clarity on those issues. If you cross the line into Boston, the new mayor, she's into what? She's into this hybrid stuff. So I just want to look at it, see if it can fit in. Maybe it can, maybe it cannot. And let's come to a consensus how to ensure that everyone, I don't care who you are, if you're black, if you're white, you're Asian, you're whatever, everybody gets a quality education because we're behind the eight ball. We're behind the eight ball. We want to get in front, and we want to make sure the teachers get what they deserve, and we want to have expertise also on the board. So that they know about contracts, they know how to get through policy, and we want to have folks who are just ordinary people too, so they have input on how their children are getting quality education. So take a look at that for me, and as we move forward, share it with the members who aren't here, and let's try to come to a consensus. We will all work together for one another and move forward together. That's the goal, to move forward together, because it's about everyone. And if we're all together on the same page, everybody gets a quality education. So that's my spiel for today.
Yes.
So you want, yeah, just briefly in response to the questions, because I will say that the proposal that I have up on the screen is in respect to in the event you wish to choose an elected school board, right?
Yeah.
As a whole, there is absolutely models out there when it comes to the hybrid system. The hybrid system still requires some form of elections to take place.
Exactly.
And so I think that the considerations made in what you have so far is kind of the foundational principles you need to consider when it comes to the practicality of the election process. But the idea of hybrid is certainly something that is out there, is used in other jurisdictions. I'm happy answer, or I think, do a deep dive for more information around hybrid system, if that's the directive that, the commission wants to take. But I think that the principles underlying the map, the ideas of regions, the considerations around why at large is more challenging, and regional things like that are absolutely would apply either way. But I would also flag for the student on the school board. I know that is a Boston initiative as well.
Exactly.
And that is not necessarily contemplated in this proposal, but again, I'm happy to do some more research on other jurisdictions.
And so what I'm looking at here, and thinking about this, going through this process, I want true representation. I want truth, I want diversity, I want justice, I want fairness. And I want Providence to be number one in terms of education. So, number one. And so you've been lacking. I want to make sure we're going to do this as a team, that we do it right, and we get it right. We're at the forefront of this country. And so, I just want to say this to Jim. And Mr. Chairman, I want to say again to you, it's been a pleasure working with you. And, brought this to the forefront. I appreciate you for that.
Commission, any other commission members, any questions at this time? Did, no, Commissioner Tiago?
Actually, I'll make a comment. First of all, thank you for the presentation, for bringing this forward. I second everything that Dr. Montague mentioned here. And I will also comment on the idea of a full transition into an elected school board, having at large versus regionalized. And I think the map kind of shows the obvious advantage of having a regional based elected school board versus at large. Getting about what happened in Worcester, I think the courts agree, right? But it doesn't mean that they're not out there, and that we couldn't transition to that. We were looking to move forward with an elected school board. So I definitely like the idea that if that's how we do choose to move forward here in the city of Providence, that it is in some form of regional basis as what's presented here.
I want to say, first of all, Sean, good job. And I think this is about, it's kind of funny that as he was going through the process, we were talking about this conversation. We've been talking about, we had excellent conversations in these meetings. And the reality is this is something that is, let's face it, the private school system needs help. Two, we all cannot afford to have 24,000 children not receive a quality education. Not just Providence, this is a problem. People don't understand. The 24,000 students coming out of private system, if they don't have an education, it's not a Providence problem, it's a Rhode Island problem.
Exactly.
Because 24,000 students equal to some populations of, I think it's close to the population of Johnston. Let's try, again, Gloucester, Coventry. We're talking about a whole, almost a town full of people not having an education and not having the ability to have an education. It's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire state. That's a fact. That's why this issue about the private school reform is not a Providence problem, it's a state problem. We really have to really be honest about it. We have to do everything we can, because you cannot afford that. Having 24,000 students come out every year, so I'm doing the total, by the way, not have a quality education is a debilitating impact to the state's economy, ability to grow, future leaders, future scientists, future everything, business people, etc. So this is a serious,
Very
conversation.
serious.
So the second thing is, I remember Sean's correct. We talked about region. I was talking about going region. We talked about region because it made sense. Because going citywide, or what's called, at large, you basically have to have a person have to raise money like who's running for mayor. That's insane. When this mayor's race is done in September, I think they're going to be spending $2 or $3 million this week. Can you imagine if you have to run at large in the city funds? It just becomes unfinancially accountable. It makes, it leaves out whole groups of people and the ability to participate in the process. You have to raise that kind of money. So regional, and it made sense, north, south, east, west, we kind of talk about all the time. You're from the south, I'm from the west, I'm from the east, I'm from downtown, central. So it made sense. It's kind of funny. The city's like a natural north, south, east, west, and central. And it naturally has been 15 minutes. So when they went down the path of conversation was, how do we make sure that everybody has a seat at the table? And I commend on it. I understand. I was there when it used to be just appointed by the mayor, then it was converted to the mayor to now have a group, a committee to give, do vetting and something to the mayor. And I think that's fine. It's not, and everyone's done a great job. This is not about, it's not about that wasn't good people serving in the past, the present, or how the system was. I think it's always how to make it better. So it's about, and by the way, for me, it's not about making it better for me or for us individually. It's about making it better for the system to function. So these 24,000 children get a quality education. That's on all, I know that's all our goal. And the idea was, how do we make sure everybody gets a seat at the table? And why we went this way is because unfortunately, sometimes, guess what? Not every neighborhood, not every one gets representation. It just happens. And how do you make sure that a person from the west side, the south side, or west, central, everyone has a voice? And that's where we came around here, this regional aspect. Because this way, those neighborhoods would definitely be represented. Now, I am intrigued about the potential. And Harvard always talked about maybe some point. Now, we could flesh it out. Now I'm just spitballing, like you could do this model here. And then there's 3 appointments. So I got 13 members, and one of those appointments can be a student, that's what people want. And then 2 could be in case you need, the committee and the mayor needs a specialty, a specialist. There's something we said about that too. So there could be a meeting. There's something we said about where you have a majority elected, and then you have at least 3 appointments potentially, and they go to the same process that goes to them. So something to think about.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. And if anything, even more voices involved.
Exactly.
And this way, if the second conversation, if the makeup of the school board is lacking a particular representation, or by the way, education, a skill set,
Exactly.
you now have at least a kind of a slight fail-safe mechanism to say, oh, I need to get it. We need a carpenter here. We have 10 plumbers. We've got the carpenter. I'll leave it at that. So that's something to think about. And I think I'm intrigued by that idea. I'm just don't know.
Yeah, and Mr.
And
Chairman,
I think it can meet that need. Something to think about and actually flesh that out.
and I think the fourth part too is having a student with voting rights. So they're part of what's going on. And they have to say, so.
Well, you're gonna have to do a criteria too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now remember now, you say a student in general. Most
I know,
students,
but
so it's like
again,
fifth grade, say, I
you
want to be
no,
on.
you have to come up with criteria.
Right, exactly. So we have to kind of flesh that
Right,
out.
you have to flush it out.
So you
This
just
is
gonna
something
point.
that's gonna take a little bit of
Right.
time. It's gonna take a little bit of time to
Right.
put it all together. But I think it can happen. I think it can work. And and at the end of the day, guess what? Everybody's gonna be happy, into a consensus, and move this door on school department to another level.
And more people have to sit at the table.
More people have to see it at the
Greater
table.
representation.
The person.
The whole city had a representation of the youth. I represent a minority majority. They deserve just as much representation as any other.
Exactly.
Bottom line. So everyone should be able to see the table. So I'm just also, I'm intrigued by that. And I think there's a lot of this merit to that conversation that maybe that's the thing. You do this and that 3 appointments, and that's something to think about. So, and this way now you get 13 more, so what? And meanwhile, you can address some of those concerns. So I think that's something we should definitely flesh out. But I also want to go into it, like, you mentioned about qualifications is important too, because when you're running for election, you have to have certain criteria of qualification. That's a good thing too, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing for apply a council person or mayor. You have to have certain qualification, and you go to that election crucial, where here's the bottom line: if 2 people get elected, let's say our region 3, they're gonna go to that crucial, those 3 wards. And I like that it'd be nonpartisan, because it's not perfect. But it takes some of the politics out.
Exactly, that's the point. I was
Possibly
gonna
take
say
it all out. but make it into
Exactly.
politics. Take some of the
Exactly.
politics out. Because you're not chasing, listen, everybody shows up in November and they get the name on the ballot and you get it. So there's a lot of merit to that, Mike, because isn't one of the biggest issues we keep on talking about, this is me, my perspective, is people are concerned about politics being played in the school system, and they're trying to say, we need to get politics out of it, because the kids are getting lost in the equation. That's my.
I agree, Jim.
So I want you to know that I think there's a lot of merit to that, and it makes, in this section of the city, we should, we have to flush that out.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for listening again.
No.
You took it all in, and you just laid it out perfectly. This is what it's all about. And it's about taking the politics out. It's about educating our kids. That's the key to success.
And if I just say, and we actually have an opportunity as a commission, there's something, I know change is scary for people.
It is.
Oh, by the way, this potential for change for the better to make it a better system. So I say we can really think about it because we have a chance to do something good. And it's the reason why we're here today. So I know that I think, Chair, I want to school board. And does anybody else want to speak? Any folks want to speak at all? Yeah, that's it. Okay. I just want. Do you want to do that? Why don't you sit next to them? And then you identify yourself. Sure. And then you can give us a little info. How's that? You won't have to do. And if anybody else in the audience would like to, I have no problem with that, all right? Anybody else? Why don't you first give your name for the record? Appreciate it. Sorry, say it again.
Tinzel Thomas, and I serve as the current chair.
Welcome.
I just had a suggestion, looking at the map and listening to the discussion in terms of the ratio of potential elected members of the school board versus those appointed. Would it be possible to have one appointed and one elected from each region? That way the board has a balance of elected officials versus appointed officials.
That's something we can talk about. We can flesh that out.
Because my experience is, certainly not much, but it has since over years, the school board comprised of appointed officials have done a lot of work. It's a long time. I think there's still a vast majority of folks who are interested in serving on the school board and may not want to engage in an election process, but could still provide value input, such as bringing a student on board as well, right? So I think it's just important that we, as we go through this process, we can think about how we can have that. So we're going to move into this type of arrangement where we can have a fair number of elected as well as appointed.
I think I'm willing to look flush out a hybrid. I actually said to the day, my issue, for example, my neck of the woods hasn't been represented since the 70s. That's, for me, that's a problem. Because I'm reading that it's something I couldn't solve during my time. And it's something maybe this potentially can solve where there will be representation, not just for my neck of the woods, but everybody's neck of the woods. I mean that sincerely, by the way. I have no problem that people are coming from all different parts of the city. I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to see the pay. And that's what's driving, this is what drives me in this conversation. And by the way, that's why I love the council, because every neighborhood practically gets a voice, okay? They get to sit there and share their voice in city government, and they're part of that process. And that's why it's so fun for the council, actually.
I will say one of
I'm
the.
gonna be defensive of everything.
I will say, just as a point of feedback with regards to the current layout. As
What do you think of that? What do you think of the
Well,
5 regions?
one of my concerns with this is, with folks that are elected from these regions, would they serve the interests of the schools in their region versus the overall interest of the school department. And I think that that's something that, you know, an appointed school board, we don't have necessarily ties to a particular set of schools, but our focus is on the betterment of the school district as a whole versus this layout where an elected official from Region 1, if my 3 or 4 schools in Region 1 are doing well, am I really concerned about outcomes for Region 4? And am I voting in favor of things that will help Region 4? So I think that's just something to keep in mind as we look at this, because I think
I
it's,
think it's about, but I would say, I gotta say this thing, when no one drive all of them, because here's the problem. Let's say this happened, they're elected. All 5 regions, anybody who's elected out of region, just like 15 councilors, they all get, there's a lot of pressure put on them. So all of the regions will be saying the same thing, saying, we need to make this work. And they're gonna say, I want my background to work, but I need to also get your background to work, so mine works too. And the point that it ends up becoming more of a, I believe it drives the commonality of the system, because everybody's gonna be trying to get their piece. Now, and I don't know how many councils that I know that get involved in their school, you know, the schools and the neighbors. You know, a school gets built, or they do something funny to it, or they make the school a dumping ground, they flip a middle school to a high school. So it's the council person usually out there, really saying, what's going on? So I think that when you create these regions, it's a pretty big regions now. This is like, you know, talking about 3 wards. So there's a lot of schools in each one of those wards. So there's a lot of interest and put pressure on the system to work as a whole, because you still can't make just one school work and the others not work. I mean, by the intentionally that is. I mean, traditionally, when you're on the school board, you can't say, okay, we're gonna give money to this school, but these other ones are getting nothing. I don't think that happens. I've never seen that. So my impression is what drives the resources and what drives turnarounds based on how that school is performing. So if a school is performing well, it's okay, let's not tinker with that. And these schools aren't performing well, guess what? We have to drive more resources there. Because at the end of the day, the whole system has to work. So I'm not saying that's not a valid issue. I would just hope and I would think that if they have you're somewhat cosmopolitan, but you have to be somewhat provincial, but you're thinking small, but to be a little more cosmopolitan and approach the whole system itself, because the whole system still has to work. Because right now, even if you're 1 or 2 bright spots, the whole system is not functional, right? Because those bright spots eventually going to dim out too. It's only a matter, it's just a fact, because you got to get it moving in the right direction.
It gives you a weak link. It's like a chicken.
That's right.
A little weak link over here, all unsuccessful. Everybody has to be strong. And Lake South, it's about everyone. Before we issue, for every single person, whether you're one, black, blue, green, for everybody finally coming together to move the system that everybody's being part of. That has to be mindset. There's no point in the system. It's over.
And there's nothing wrong with that, with someone saying, hey, I'm worried about my region.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you what, I guess because on that, there's no one out there worried about it. So we're chasing, trying to get people to worry about our region. Well, it's good to have someone have a voice in region 3, 2, and 4, and 5, and 1 saying, hey, by the way, my region's gonna function over here. That's also giving that region, those groups, those voices, a seat at the table. That's what's driving. Right now, there is no voice for certain parts. I'm hoping, by the way, I commend you in the school board. I'm hoping the school board says, oh, let's worry about the other side of it. Not this school board. I've seen school boards make some terrible decisions in my neighborhood and my schools. I built brand new schools, built brand new schools, brand new middle school, and the school department usually decided to make it into make middle school, high school at the same time. They devastated the building. It wasn't built to be a high school. And then now it's come back to another school, but the damage is done. By the way, because no one's out there saying, oh, what's going on over here? What are you doing? So, you know, it's okay to have people have some vested interest and want to stake in their region. Right? When I look at the council, there's 15 of us. By the way, at the end of the day, you all have to come to the budget. But they all have their own individual concerns and needs in the neighborhoods. And everybody tries to try to help each other out. And we try to, it's about compromise, it's called democracy, it's about trying to make it work for everybody, right? And not one group overshadowing another. So that's how that's what I'm equating. I don't make that philosophical, I apologize to you. But my thing is, that's kind of how it is, because I'm going from my real world experience where no one was saying, hey, what's going on? Why do you change the dynamic of the school until it's too late? So that's all I do with that. So that's I never see a problem with people claiming ownership of an area, as long as they want it to be fair, open, and reasonable, and how we can get to achieving the goal for the school.
I'm certainly gonna, take the information back, process it more.
Yeah, let's do. And I think we're willing to look into that, some kind of, we'll look into that. I think there's something to say about that. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I think we maybe will have to mention it, which I think I understand. But we could talk about it, yeah. And by the way, any other school members on the phone, by the way, this is not, just so you know, I want you to know, this is not an indictment of the Providence School Board. No, it's not an indictment of the president. It's not an indictment of the. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with, can we make it better? Does it work? Can it not? Is it something we should look towards? Looks like regions are looking at it. How do we get greater representation? So that's the driving force. It's nothing on that aspect. Prior mayors have done more damage to the school board than the city council. I'll leave it at that. Prior mayors, I'll say prior mayors. Who had too much control. Yes, Commissioner.
So I know that this proposal process, but in your research, you talked about this possibilities that are there any short and long-term outcomes, benefits that they own and saying this, we might do this, I know this. What are the benefits to this?
Yeah, I would say the work we were doing was really focused on trying to give simply a responsive answer to what they like. It was very much process oriented. I think that's absolutely a fair question. I know I can come across some articles versus appointed. I think would be probably more constructive to me. Now, next meeting is take the time to pull all that together to fire off. But I will certainly do that for the ones that kind of more solid view around, outcomes from different areas and different jurisdictions. Probably they look for Boston and different for Boston and us. But I think understanding, we're not the first to do it, so pulling that together, I'm happy to do that. I'll try to disseminate as much as
Want to come forward? Yeah, come on. You can even bring a soda with your piece of pizza, but you're gonna be on the face page. It's right there, just state your name for the record.
I wasn't intending on speaking, I
That's all right.
promise, but this is actually my first time at a meeting like this. My name is Cindy Robles. I am a Providence Public Schools parent. And I'm actually really excited that I came today. This was the first time, like I said, that I went to a meeting like this. Thank you. And I'm actually really intrigued to hear the proposal and then the kind of sort of counter proposal. For me personally, I'm really interested in an elected school board. And I'll tell you why. Looking at this map that I just looked up for the first time today, I think I would fall into District 3. My children have gone to our neighborhood schools until high school. I currently have a high schooler now, and my oldest is already graduated. But I guess my desire for an elected school board is my children, right? I feel like I should have a voice in who's making these decisions for my children, because they're my children. right? It's their education. And while I think the school board right now and the school boards that we've had in the past have always, put children first, I'm not sure that the parent voice is always represented. And to me, that is extremely important. I think sometimes we forget about that. And again, I understand that the school board will always put children first, and we assume that they will. But at the end of the day, the parents' voices need to be heard. And I'm not sure, I'm not confident that that's happening right now. So, wasn't planning on talking, but listening to it today. I just kind of wanted to state that as a parent.
Thank you. That was.
Because again, the parent voice is
really thoughtful. And by the way, parents can run, if this happens, parents can run for those seats. That's the beauty of that. And now I'm gonna go pros and cons to the point, which is that I view it this way. Being accountable to one is less democratic than being accountable to a group of like 3 or 4 wards. What happens now is if you have an elected school board member, you're accountable to 3 wards. That comes up with almost like 40,000 people. That's a big number. So you have a big charge, and 40,000 people are approximately deciding if that person is the right person to send there to make sure they're doing, the children's bidding. Well, I'm not saying to do that, but appointments are a funny thing where you don't necessarily, you don't have the same pressure points.
Yes.
People knock on council college. They knock on our doors on Sundays, Saturday mornings. We see them at the local places, and they're saying, "What happened over there? Why is the street not? What's going on over here?" When you're elected school board member, you have to put yourself out there. You have to campaign. You have to tell your story. You have to explain why you're doing it. And then what happens is you're not just accountable to a few people. That's not whoever's the mayor, whatever's going on. You're accountable to those 40,000 people who are going to call up and come by your house. And by the way, they've come by my house. And we've talked about that in council college. They know that's like, and that creates a certain incentive that are you there for the right purpose, right reason, and are you motivated enough to execute the plan so hopefully it'll be positive for the kids. So there's something to be said about that. Those are the things that I mean by the pressure points, because you're just accountable to more people. It's a fact. They're there.
I agree. And
They're running
I feel as though, being accountable to your constituents, right? And not they'll become districts.
They become regions of this.
Regions. It's just I think they will feel the pressure, which in turn will lead to better results. And that's just my opinion. I also feel like having an elected board, as a parent, I feel like I may be able to communicate with that board a little bit more effectively than I can now. Especially if they're from my region or district.
Anybody else? Commissioners?
Parents do need a voice. And that's why we need a very, very good school board to make sure that they have. And I think they do a very good job now.
Thank you, by the way.
Always do better in everything that we do. And this is why we're here today, to start talking about making it better. Your idea of having a elected. It's something that you just look at and see how things can work out. It's gonna take some time for you. You can, of course, the way in Boston, talk to the mayor over here also, the mayor here, and someone leave it at the end of the day, how we're gonna make it better for everyone. And I think that's what you basically say, students, parents, for the teachers, for the school board, the entire administration, so that everybody gets. And I think everybody deserves a voice. And this is why I'm so looking into this table is giving everybody a voice. We haven't hidden anything, we brought everything up to the forefront so that we can have a wonderful discussion about it. We're all on the same page here. We want to make it better for everybody. So let's continue to do that, work on it. And at the end of the day, we'll come to some consensus that's going to be good for everybody and everybody's going to be happy. Appreciate it.
Does anybody else would like to speak? They would like to. I'm happy to. Does anybody else have questions about this? Then
I
I'd say,
think this one is just saying, did a good job. So, stood up some great conversation, and we're at a good place where we can move forward. And make it better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. So I asked Sean if you could, seem like there were two particular highlights that I think we need to do some research on, right? One, of course, is the hybrid conversation, and the second one is benefits, that Tricia mentioned, which is pros and cons. What happens is, is it beneficial? Will it have a desired result? Does it create? I guess the question is, it's a combination of them. What's the mission statement? Greater voices, more people at the table, more representation, and of course, does it have a positive impact? Now, I'm just saying in general, where we are right now, I'm looking for anything that's gonna make it better. It has nothing to do with anybody who's present against that realize the school system's in trouble and we need to, we can't put our shoulders in this and figure out, give opportunities to make it better. The beauty of this is, change can be good, but we have to be also cautious and do it the right way. Hopefully have it get the desired result. So I look at those two issues, do a little more deep dive, and then we'll have further conversation and further maps. I know, Bryce, I did Chairwoman Ryan want to have a chair comment? Did she raise her hand? Up there. Chairwoman Ryan, did you have a statement or a comment you want to ask?
She's not there.
Oh, was she her hand up? Okay, hope so. So, all right. So I think we have some more homework to do, right?
Yeah,
So I
plan more towards the commission members, any questions or research you want to have next meeting. You have my contact information, I'm happy to provide you.
And then I would just ask them, as we're gonna keep rolling with stocks, last couple of times, we turned down that list of 3 pages. And what I expect for the next meeting is a simple breakdown, just she's pairing off all the things that would not even consider, just cut that off. Stuff that should go to ordinance, so just put that in another page, and stuff that we say that, we know there's certain things we definitely do, which we talked about, a non-gender specific, all those kind of general things, we all agree. So that should be like, this should be some basic ones that we all know. I think the commission's pretty much on the point they want to change anyway. So we should get them fleshed out. I think one of the biggest issues, the biggest question, of course, going to be this right here. And I think there's, and then we're talking about appointment issues on different commissions and boards by the council, having a little more balance if they're not all mayoral appointments. Once again, that's that conversation, more inclusiveness and representation. We talked about that. So I need to stop paring this down because we need to, make a decision how we like to present. Just people understand the process, and I'm going to reiterate it after this commission done. And it goes to the council, and the council determines what goes on the ballot. And things that come out of this commission, the council could still put something in the ballot that's a part of the commission. It's just the way it is. Council has the authority to put things in the ballot. So just want you to know how that plays out. But it's a process. And by the way, at the end of the day, doesn't mean it gets voted or approved. The public in November decides yes, no. People of Providence vote on this at the end. No matter what's there, what it is, and what's not there, they vote. So the council doesn't make the final say. We don't, people of Providence do. So we get to vote. Any questions on this? Any further comments? So we have a charge, we have a homework. And with that said, I appreciate you coming and attending. Thank you once again. If you're chairman, if you have any additional questions or concerns, contact Sean, talk about it. This is an open process. We're looking to make it better. And then anybody else having fun with that? Commissioner, Dr. Long.
How do you feel about the process?
I mean, I like the idea that it's open, right? To your point, it's important to have it, figure out how we proceed. I'm looking forward to following up with Sean, providing him with feedback from my colleague. I hear that parents are, I hear that they want, the folks want more than 17. I think this is a process of potential. Open-minded, school board wants to be part of the solution. We'll follow this process over.
Thank you for your comment. So with that said, there's nothing more on this matter. So then we're going to, I guess, make a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Dr. Montague, second by Commissioner Vargas. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you all, by the way. We also have some extra pizza. Please have some. Thank you. Great job, Sean. Thank you all. Yes.
Because that's just a Providence. No one can be out.